My current project is Arcadia Missa. It's called Unified Fabric, and its central component is a self-built render farm. A render farm is any number of computers linked together so that they can combine their resources and produce images or process requests faster than an individual computer would be able to. They're used on large scales to produce CGI effects for Hollywood films and animation, and as an example, one frame of a Pixar animation takes about 8 hours on average to render. So the extremity of the time scale of 8 hours for 25th of a second, and what happens in between that is what started my interest in this project.
Unified Fabric is essentially the build-up of a much longer project. It's much more a program rather than just what's in the gallery space today. Harry did show Human Resolution for last year's PAMI in 2012. He then went on to write the text for Mute Magazine Human Resolution, to which I responded to with a text for Post Media Lab. We also did a talk with Vera Tolman and Josie, Barry Slater and Anthony Isles from Mute in Berlin last September. And yeah, so this has really been the climax of all of that work, all of those conversations, by really being able to expand it outward and ask other artists to contribute.
The title of the show is taken from an advert for Cisco Unified Data Center. I came across Cisco and their advertising campaigns through research I was doing and conversations I was having with people about surveillance and large-scale computing, and I came across their films whilst trying to find out how to build something similar on a smaller scale. They're talking about their capacity as a company to be able to streamline production and streamline the flow of information. Along with that capacity to streamline the flow of information is a kind of cohesive and generally happy workforce. It's quite a nice exposure of that sort of ideology that if we're more connected, you know, more equality or sort of fulfilment would somehow follow from that, rather than more exploitation. Other images that appear in Cisco's adverts a lot are images of sort of flowing cloth, and generally in digital advertising there's a lot of images of liquid and light reflection and various immaterial or kind of mutable, fluctuating fluid forms. And these are supposed to be, they're an expression of the kind of immateriality of computing, and also its changeability and its mutability. What I'm interested in trying to do with building the render farm is trying to foreground the material cost of producing these kinds of images. So challenging, I suppose, that idea of digital labour as something immaterial and inaddressable. And one example of the actual material cost would obviously be like the extraction of rare earth minerals, or you know, conflict minerals, and the use of cheap labour, and you know, those are things that obviously are known about, that computers require and that technology requires, but it doesn't really fit with the sort of current ideological conception of what technology is capable of. And I think that extends through society also to art, and is a problem in the production of digital art. So the aim of the show is to really foreground the processes behind the production of an image.
This has been the first moment that a group of artists have been able to engage in the conversation of the processes and the material behind the render farm. Each of the artists in the show, so we have Hito Steyerl, Melika, Ngombe, Kolongo and Daniella Russo, Maja Cule, Takeshi Shiomitsu and Clunie Reid. All of the artists in the show were selected because they really engage in thinking about describing or subverting power structures behind the image. We have a video by Hito Steyerl made in 2010 called Strike. It's a really important video for this show. What it deals with is something that Harry Sanderson has been talking about, as well as Cadence Kinsey in our last anthology, but it's the idea of there being many attempts to represent the screen that manage to fall into neoliberal ideas of success or cleanliness and health. So it's often represented by air or by water, which is what is quite prevalent in the Cisco adverts that Harry Sanderson was looking at as part of his research. And what's really important about Strike is the kind of like direct attack of the screen in order to represent its real materiality, because obviously its material or the image of the screen itself is invisible, as it is the conduit to show other representations. So that's really important, and it's something that Hito Steyerl has dealt with for a long time, and I think it's not only important that that was paid homage to in the texts, but also that this work was part of this show, because it's not just about the labour behind the image, it's also about the representation and how the screen mediates these things.
I'm Maja Cule, and I'm showing the video Horizon in Unified Fabric. The video was filmed at the Trump Tower on 40 Wall Street. It's kind of like a really symbolically important building. It's taking in consideration some of the production methods in a cinema and digital image. The video was actually shot in 2 pieces, and the actor was shot in front of the green screen and then montaged, superimposed on the image. It's depicting the classical film scene of the fall, which is for the reason always shot from the view of from the gaze of the viewer, because to kind of like build the empathy, because this is like the only scene where you can actually save the person who is falling. The falling is definitely the action that has been happening in the financial district, or at least like the propaganda of like the crisis, and the fall being like the action that would kind of end it. This classic film scene of the fall is usually showed, and the ending is showed with a cut frame, and the video is playing continuously on a loop, so it's kind of like actually depicting more the struggle to stay on the edge.
The video that I've contributed to the show is called Detail, and it's shot using video motion amplification, which allows you to amplify and see changes in a video that aren't visible to the eye. The reason it was developed is primarily to check the heartbeat of infants without touching them. It's an example of surveillance being able to be carried out less and less invasively. Its initial development seems like quite a benign thing, but it's an example of how once something is revealed by technology, it becomes mediated by that technology and can no longer be conceived of on a kind of more subjective human level. It's an example of a new distance being established.